Welcome back, everybody, to Real Estate Junkies Coast to Coast. I'm your co host, Rusty Ham on the West Coast.
And I'm your co-host Rick Abbiati on the East Coast.
What's up, Rick? I just saw you a couple hours ago. What's happening?
Hey, we tend to cross paths quite often.
That's right. That's right. We had our high six mastermind. We have one every month, right? And this was a good one. It was a variety, and we're going to go over it with our game plan. Just a variety of different topics. I think there was a house that has, marijuana in it. We had some evictions. We had some, I don't know, there's some other things that were, some kind of the ugliness of real estate and how to pivot out of that. But let's get started. We have our warm up, which is mindset, skill set, and systems. Then we'll have our game plan, which is, I think we're going to talk sub two on our financing. We both have one going on. And then our cool down, obviously, seems like every episode we're talking about the In the Trenches boot camp. But the cool down, we're going to talk about that. So let's start with our warm up, Rick. Mindset. This has kind of been on my mind because we have a few associates that haven't gotten their first deal yet, right? And they've been in the community for a while, and it could get frustrating. And we both have been there, right?
Yep. Yep.
So the mindset of buying into a coaching program, and it's not cheap to be transparent, and then not getting a deal for a period of time. And it could weigh on you, right? You're like, hey, I have invested X amount of money. I'm expecting something in return, right? Pretty quickly. And so what we equated it off the air was, you know, buying into a coaching program like ours or buying into like a franchise. And buying into a franchise is there's various times, right? I think Rick, would you so kind of describe buying into a franchise and kind of that break even point, because there's a lot of work that has to go with franchising, right? It's not like real estate. I wouldn't say it's easy. I mean, we're calling people and trying to get houses under contract, but buying into a franchise seems a little bit harder to me. I don't know. What are your thoughts on
Yeah. I mean, it all depends on the type of franchise it is. You have the home based franchises, if you will, and you have brick and mortar type franchises. And a lot of those take years to break even.
that? Right.
So it depends. A lot of people come into this thinking, oh, I'm going to pop some deals and I'm going to make big bucks. And then 6 months down the road, well, why hasn't it happened?
Right.
Everybody's path is different. Some of us come in with baggage. Some of us, may not have the confidence, and sellers can pick that up when you're talking to them. So there's skill sets and there's mindsets involved in that time frame that it takes to get to the point where you're actually doing deals.
Right. Yeah. No, good point. And you're sort of married to the franchise, right? It's almost, I want to call it a W-2. It's like, because the amount of hours spent in is a lot less, I would imagine. Would you agree or disagree?
In a franchise, you're gonna be living there.
Yeah. So you're putting in 10, 12-hour days, right? I'm assuming. Um, and we're putting 10 to 12 hours
A
a
week.
week. Right. So that I think that's and it just popped in my head because we didn't talk about it off the air, but that just kind of popped in my head is okay, let's say hypothetically you're going to break even on a franchise in 2 years, but in those 24 months there's no days off. It's almost 7 days a week. You're trying to get this thing off the ground. Where let's say it takes 2 years for us. I mean, the flexibility that you have with us, just, you're putting in maybe 2 hours a day of prospecting, calling sellers to see if they want to sell their home. Mindset wise, or just mental health wise, it's a lot smoother. Now, it is frustrating not to get a deal, right? For me, um, we were both lucky. We were both government employees, so we weren't getting fired. Well, I don't know about you, but I was not getting fired as a PE teacher.
I was I was a contractor, so yes, I could have been.
Could have, okay, but I mean, uh, so it took me a year to get my first taken. We call that taken, which is a house under contract. I had to give it back. We couldn't sell it to our rent to own market. But after that, it took me a year. So, but after that, my confidence skyrocketed, right? And we talked about stuff here too. My confidence skyrocketed, and I was able to get more leads into my funnel, and I was able to get something later on down the line. But I could have given up at any time. I could have said, you know what? I have this easy cush PE job. I can sit in my PE office, and then every once in a while go out and teach, these classes, and do that for the next 11 years until I retired. Right. And I could have done that, no problem. Because I was frustrated. I was, after a year, I'm like, how come nothing's happening? How come I don't have a deal? And then I got I got two deals back to back shortly after that, and I was able to sell them and get a paycheck. And I think you still have your paycheck, on your home screen, right?
Yeah.
So a year and a half for me to get my first paycheck, which basically paid for my coaching at the end of the day, right? So it took me a year and a half to break even. And then I've done multiple deals after that. And now I'm not teaching anymore. And, I work from home, which is kind of nice. So I guess my point is, and then what about you? How long did it take for you to get your first deal?
So it took me 15 months to get my first deal. And which was, yeah, it's frustrating. But I'm watching people getting deals. So I knew the proof of concept was definitely there. And it's all mindset, and confidence. I was more of an introvert, I'd say. Um, and talking to sellers on a cold call, that was
Yeah.
just not in my plan. And I don't think maybe it's on many people's plan anyway. But you know, when I got my first deal, it was a $90,000 payday one,
Right.
and Chris laughs. He says, "Could you be more excited?" I didn't know what to think. I was looking at this check, going like, "Really?"
Yeah.
And
And they make fun of both of us too, because my first payday was an AO. It was 10% on a $1.1 million home. So I got a payday of $110,000. And they always said on the mat, like, don't be, why you don't act so excited, Rusty. I think you and I both have the same personality as far as we're sort of laid back. We're just like, we're kind of chill about certain things.
well, the other key thing is once I got that, and I placed that right on my monitor, and your confidence level, once you get your first deal, your confidence level skyrockets, like Rusty just said. And the following 2 months, I had two more deals. So I had three within 3 months. And then a couple months later, I had my fourth deal. All of them were close to six-figure deals. So right then, just in that amount of time, I more than four times my coaching investment.
Right. And then you added on an executive assistant, and so in the very beginning, your expenses are fairly low. I would say maybe $1,000 to $1,500 a month,
Mm-hmm.
as for like CRM and your phone number, all that kind of stuff. Um, but like you said, after you get those deals, you need to expand. It's like any other business. You gotta invest in yourself in order to grow. If you just continue to be a solopreneur, I'm not sure you would be where you're at today, right? You
Right.
definitely you added to your team in order to grow exponentially, correct?
Yep. And, that took coaching from Chris,
Right.
because I had the expense mindset, spending money rather
Right.
than investing it in my business. And once that sunk in, Chris told me it's going to pay you back many times over. And I'll tell you, it really has. I hired a CPA, trying to do bookkeeping in Excel or QuickBooks by yourself. and tracking everything and you don't know what you're doing
Right.
is not good. And the more deals you have a lot going on. And then all of a sudden, my big thought was, I'm going to be responsible for somebody else's salary. And that was intimidating. And so once I got over that hump, my executive assistant has been a godsend because she's taken so much off my plate and made life so much easier for me. So it's a business mindset, and you learn that as you go.
Right. And so let's backtrack then to the person that hasn't gotten a deal yet and is getting frustrated. Um, I guess you have door number one, door number two. Door number one is okay. You invest X amount of dollars, and it's going to take you a year or 2 years to break even with minimal effort, so to speak, meaning 10 to 15 hours a week. And then would you be okay with waiting that long in order to grow your business exponentially, like you just said? After you get your first deal, then you're going to get your second, third, and fourth. Now you're four times, and after I'm assuming it was close to 2 years, you're like in between that 18 to 24 months where you were getting multiple deals, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had 15 months to get my first deal, and within 2 years, I left my W-2 and I had 4 deals under my belt.
Yeah. So would you got to be okay with the waiting part, because it's not going to happen right away. Especially the terms business, like you can get into real estate where you're fixing, flipping, you're wholesaling, and you're using other people's money, and you might see some return pretty quick, right? With terms, you're not going to see a return on your investment that quickly, unless it's very rare that somebody gets a deal. Like we just had a deal happen within, they came in the community, I think last month, and they just got a taken. So that's rare, right? So you got to be okay. You got to be patient, is what I'm saying. It's not a get rich quick thing. It's just, you got to learn how to talk to people. You got to learn how to talk to sellers, and handle objections. And once you get better and better and better at that, then you become more natural, you get more confidence, and then that's when things start to happen, right?
Yep. And I remember when I first started calling people, I learned a new language in 4 letter words. I mean,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah,
and I can't even remember the last time a seller gave me a hard time on the phone.
exactly. Someone, in the high six call, I think someone's like, oh, can we go over a call that, a few calls that, people are cussing me out. And I thought, I'm like, I don't remember the last person who's ever cussed me out. Like, it's
No,
just it's how you come across the phone, right? If you're coming across the phone, I don't know why would they. I'm trying to picture someone cussing me out, and it's probably because either I sound like I'm selling them something, or I don't sound confident, and they're
hmm
just like, "You're wasting my time. Just get the f out of my face,"
right,
right?
right.
So it just comes down with confidence. You got to, even if you're wrong, they don't know your script. The seller doesn't know your script. So even if you say something wrong, but you say it with confidence, you're going to be okay, because you can always go back, because they're not going to remember who you are anyway. In 48 hours, they're going to be like, who are you? You can just,
Yeah,
pretend, you
it's
know,
like I'll call somebody and I'll say, "You talked to my assistant Angela 2 days ago."
who?
Well, who?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
but going back to what your return, when you look at it, because we have a 3 payday system, which is amazing. Your business grows exponentially because, yes, we talk about the big payday ones. Some of the payday ones are 30,000 or even less. You just don't know. It depends on the deal. But by the time you get your payday threes, which is usually within a couple of years, and any time between then and like 4 years or more, um, it grows exponentially.
right,
And then your confidence grows along with it, and you get even better.
right. Cool. Thanks, Rick. I appreciate that. Yeah, mindset's definitely huge when it comes to real estate in general, but especially with the terms business that we're in. Let's pivot to our game plan. We've talked about this game plan multiple times. To sub two owner financing hybrid. We call it a hybrid because you're buying the home subject to the existing mortgage. The mortgage is going to stay in the seller's name. The title is going to transfer to our company name. The owner financing component is they have a lot of equity, right? So in my situation, they had about $300,000 in equity. So they wanted 5% down. So I gave them 5% up front. And then I took title, and then I've been paying on their mortgage, pretty high mortgage for, and this is what comes into play later. It's about $4,000 a month as a mortgage payment. It's a 15-year loan, so that's why it's a high. But it's a high principal pay down. That's why I took it. It's like $2,400 coming off the principal every month, right? So I'm like, cha-ching, 2% mortgage rate. I'm like, I'm taking this. I don't care what I'm doing, right? So, um, so I gave him 5% up front, and then we agreed on, I think it was around $263,000 to be paid on or before 48 months. So that's what we mean by a subject to owner financing. The equity that I owe the person is owner financed at 0%. And then on or before 48 months, I cut them a check for $263,000 and we're done with it. Describe your sub two, and then I'll come back to
Yep.
how my sub two is going.
With my sub two, they had I think it was $130,000 mortgage, and they had, let's see, I paid 270, 265 for the property, which is a lower end of my area. And so they had that in equity. They didn't need it all up front, but they wanted payments on it,
Mm,
and they needed $10,000 to move.
okay.
So I gave them the $10,000 to move, which, I had enough capital built up to do that, enough in reserves. And not only that, I could use my payday one to do that, which I did reimburse myself for that. And keep in mind, when you're putting a down payment down, you're getting that back on your payday three anyway.
Right.
So just the way it works. But yeah, so that was a 4 year term. Actually, it was 36 months and two 6 month extensions,
Right.
because she didn't want to go 4 years. So I said, well, how about 36 and two 6 month extensions? She was good with that. So
It's the same thing.
yeah. So I pay their mortgage payment, which is about $1,200 a month, and then I pay the seller a monthly payment of like 467 against their equity.
Okay, so yours is a little different, right? Mine was 0% on or before 48 months. Yours is some some principal payments for 48 months and then a balloon at the end, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay. So, good. So those are two, they're very similar, right? In nature. 48 months, there's owner financing component to it. You talked about a down payment. So here's the rub, right? Both of these houses, mine's a little bit in a worse shape than yours. I'm thinking, but let me describe yours, and then let me describe mine, and you can describe yours. So my, and here's where the payday one comes into play. My tenant buyers, great at first. They put $100,000 down, Rick. On this is my payday one, $100,000 on 700. I was selling it for 775. Right. So they put well over 10%. I don't know what that amount is, but it's well over 10%. Right. Um, they did great for a year and a half. No complaints. They're paying on time. And then all of a sudden they started paying, 10 days late. Then they started paying 15 days late. And I'm sending these, pay or quit. And then they would pay. So then it would roll back to, and then they were late again. So I'm sending these pay or quit notices. And then it started getting to the end of the month where they were paying, and I'm like freaking out. And then I noticed that instead of paying wire, they weren't wiring their money anymore. They were paying on their credit card. And so red flag number one is they're paying their mortgage off the credit card, which is never a good idea. And then in December, they just stopped paying. Right. So then I got an attorney, started the eviction process. Mind you, now they stopped paying. It's a $4,000 payment. So where am I going to come up with that $4,000 a month? The payday one, right? That's why we tell our associates, you get a payday one, you're not going out and buying Lamborghinis, right? You're not going and buying them on stupid stuff. You want to set a certain percent aside, maybe 6 months worth of paydays, because, so you set that aside. And if something were to happen, just like in our case, then you're able to pay that mortgage, because that's what you promised the seller. You don't want to screw the seller over because the mortgage is still in their name. So I've been able to pay that mortgage with that payday one. And then and then they trashed the place, Rick. This is what sucks about, they ended up being renters at that point. And then sometimes, renters don't necessarily take care of the home. So I had to replace the carpet, to repaint the whole place. So there's some money that I have to invest in order to get the house back in shape. But I'm going to sell it traditionally on the open market, and I'm still going to make a profit of it, right? But I still hit. And here's the thing with the 48 months is we're probably just past the 2-year mark. So theoretically, I could, if I wanted to, do another rent to own, get another down payment from somebody, and go through the whole process again. Or I have flexibility. That's what's important about the 48 months is I have flexibility on what I wanted to do, right? But that payment is it's pretty high, and so I just wanted to get rid of it. What about you? Where are you at with your property? I know it's not as bad as mine, but what is it?
No, it's mine. The tenant buyers came in. They came in with 3% down, which was like $9,000 or something like that. And after about a year, they were doing fine. They were on time and everything. They weren't good with communication, but they were doing okay. And then about a year later, I got a text message that said 2 weeks we'll be leaving, because they were getting electric bills that were like $2,000 a month.
Oh wow.
And so and there was something going on there with the electrical. We've been trying to figure that out, but either way, but they couldn't afford it the monthly, so they decided, and they voluntarily left. They didn't trash the place. So I ended up having to pay for junk removal, come in, like $2,500 to get everything out of there.
Yep.
A cleaning company to come in and totally clean the place.
Yep.
Had to have some plumbing work done. Nothing major. It was about $2,300 in plumbing. But so I had to get prepared to put another tenant buyer. Now I still have time because I had did the 36 months with the 2 6-month extensions.
Right.
So I've still got time to put another tenant buyer in there, which we're in the process of doing now. But it brings up the point again that had I not been putting some payday ones aside, then I might be strapped. But I've been making the mortgage payments for the past few months until I can get a tenant buyer in there. So, this stuff does happen. Not often, but you can expect probably if you're if you have like 10 deals, you're going to probably have one that could end up this way.
Yeah, good point. Because the way we get tenant buyers in there, we vet them. They put a substantial, and this is what surprised me about my tenant buyers. They put more than 10% down, and they still trash the place. Like they're losing out. Like this is a non-refundable down payment. If you don't exercise your option, you lose it. And so not only did they lose $100,000, they got evicted, which is on their record, right? So now if they try to go rent somewhere, it's gonna be like, hey, what's going on with this eviction? So they totally just F themselves, which that's what surprised me. But you're right. Out of all the deals that I've had, this is my only one that has been an issue, right? All the other ones have sold, and we've had pretty good experience. So, we just wanted to, I don't know if you wanted to say something, but I just wanted to say that it's, again, I say, terms is not easy. The terms business is not easy. Real estate in general is not easy, because if you are a landlord, you're going to have issues. However, our issues are very, very limited because of our vetting process. We don't let renters in. We are looking for buyers that are going to buy the home. And normally more often than not, it sounds like 10% in your case, they are going to fulfill their obligation. They're going to treat it like it's their own home, and
Mhm.
it's smooth sailing, right?
Yeah, the rewards far outweigh the downsides. And when we talk, I've had sellers say, well, what if I have to evict somebody? Well, if it's a lease purchase or a sub to owner finance or owner finance, the seller doesn't need to worry about that. That's on us. And honestly, and I heard Chris say today that they have never had an eviction not go our way
Right,
because of the way our contracts are written.
right. Yep. Yeah. So very important. Good stuff. Yeah. I mean, it, there are some ugly points to real estate, but in our business, the way we run it, and like you said, and these tenant buyers are super grateful, right?
Oh,
I think you've had a few experiences where the tenant buyers are just super grateful, because our tenant buyers are people that have money. They have it. Like, we're not letting people in there that don't have money. Like, we're setting them up for success. So we're only looking for those tenant buyers that have the money to buy a home. They just can't today for whatever reason, right? There's several reasons why they can't walk into a bank, but they have the cash flow. They have money set aside for a down payment. They just can't get a loan today. And we put them in a situation where, 24 months, whatever that time frame is, they're working on whatever they need to do to get fixed so that lenders will lend them money. And they're grateful for that. They're like, hey, we get to live in this home with our family, start a family. And again, we're allowing them to treat it as if it was their home. Like, we're not treating them as these renters. And we're not like, we'll check in. We talked about today, check in about every 6 months, just say hi and just kind of see how they're living. But you know, they're super grateful at the end of the day, right?
yeah. And I look back and I've told this story before. I had a couple that had rent to own one of my properties. And Thanksgiving, I texted them and I said, wishing you both a very happy Thanksgiving. And the reply I got back, I was like, oh my God. The reply I got back said, Rick, it's because of you that we're so blessed on this Thanksgiving. You've given us the opportunity to have a house where we wouldn't have been able to.
Yeah,
And
very
did that
cool.
make it worth it? That was really cool.
Yeah, and you're able to make some money on the side.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, very cool. Awesome. Let's get into our cool down. Um, and usually our cool down is the ITTB. We have a virtual 3-hour event in a couple days on Thursday. So it's gonna come out. This podcast is gonna come out the morning of the virtual event. So it might be too late for you guys to sign up for it, but we do have a In the Trenches boot camp in August. It's usually a 3-day or 2.5-day event. Again, the first day is we make calls for you. Second day is we go through deal structure, usually from the calls prior, and then we do business planning. See where you guys are at. Where you know, I forget where you guys go.
Strategic planning strategy.
Strategy, strategy. I
Yeah.
brain farted just now. Sorry. A strategy session. So you just take somebody and they're like, "Hey, what do you want your goals to be?" And then you go over like, how many dials is that? How many leads is that going to take? All that kind of stuff. So good stuff. That's in August. So click that link in our show notes, and then the main event. So nothing in August, September. So nothing in September, but the very beginning of October. I think it's 6 and 7, Monday, Tuesday.
Yep. That's in
Uh,
Boston.
yeah, QoS live. Again, click that link, get a ticket. Super cheap to go. Um, you know, the Real Estate Junkies podcast will be there. Maybe we'll do one there again. in a hotel room, in separate hotel rooms. Yeah, so get your stuff there. But I appreciate Rick. Great job today in the high six meeting. I'm off to Puerto Rico, baby. I got one more wake up, and I'm off to Puerto Rico.
And you have a fantastic time off there.
I will. It's gonna be hot and humid, and I think it's gonna rain a couple times. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, Rick. Have a great one, buddy.
All right,
Take care, everybody.
great as always, Rusty. Good to see you.
Yep. Good to see you. Take care.
Take care, everyone.
Oh, not leave.